proud, and then we're going to read it together as a class. So by the end of the lesson today, I, which means you guys, can describe the setting of a story by visualizing and analyzing the figurative language used in the text. So you're going to repeat after me. I can describe the setting of a story by visualizing and analyzing the figurative language used in the text. Okay, so there are some pretty tough vocabulary within this objective, so we're going to break it down. Now, the words that we are going to be circling and breaking down are 4th grade vocabulary terms. So we're going to be talking about certain terms today, and I want to be able to hear them as we review. So one of the terms that we'll be talking about today is setting. So I need everyone to circle setting. Awesome, thank you for showing me that you did it. And above it, I want you to write what setting means. So setting talks about two different things. It talks about the time and place of a story. So you should write time and place. So I shouldn't just hear you say, oh, it takes place here. I should hear you say, the setting is blank. So that's how I should see you incorporating some of the words that are in the objective when we are discussing and talking today. So I can describe the setting of a story by visualizing. So visualizing, I want you to also circle. So visualizing. And then when we are visualizing, we are making a picture in our head. So just write picture in head or picture in mind. So when we are visualizing, which is a skill, we are creating a picture in our head. And analyzing, and we've talked about analyzing previously, analyzing is when we kind of break it down. So when we're analyzing the objective, we're breaking it down. We're describing what the words mean in the objective. So when we're analyzing, we're looking closely or looking deeply at something. And based on this objective, we're going to be looking closely at figurative language. So I want everyone to circle figurative language. So the two types of figurative language that we're going to be looking at today are similes and metaphors. So I just want you to write simile and metaphor. And we'll talk a little bit more about what a simile and metaphor is when we go into the key points and more into the guided notes. So we'll be able to describe the time and place in which a story takes place by making pictures in our head and kind of breaking down the similes and metaphors used in the text. So we'll be using the similes and metaphors to visualize and then better understand the setting. So the work that we're going to be doing today relates to 4th grade standards. It's important that each of our objectives relates back to grade level content. So some of the standards that we have 3 that we're going to be focusing on today, are referring to details in the text. So that is textual evidence. The second one is describing a setting in a story or drama. Well, we're going to be doing that because that's part of our objective. And then the third is understanding figurative language. And when we break down or we analyze the figurative language, that's when we're going to be understanding the figurative language. Yes, Jada? You may. So now we're going to move into the key points. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 key points in this lesson. These points are kind of the main content learning today? So when you go home, you talk to your parents, what did you do today? You can reference one of these points. These points will also help you achieve the objective and describe the setting. They will also break down, oh sorry, there is 6, you're correct. There are 6 points. I didn't see the one at the bottom. So there are 6. So all 6 of these points you can refer back to when you are completing your work today to support you. And then also when you go home, you can also share these points with your parents. So figurative language is the opposite of literal language. Now we have discussed what literal language is, and again, I appreciate that everybody is copying what I am writing. We've talked about literal language before. Can someone repeat what the word literal means? What does the word literal mean? Michaela?
Like, it can really happen.
Okay, it's really happening. What else? Who can build on? Okay, Jewel?
That it's like real and it's not like fiction.
Yep, that it's real and it's fiction. It's exactly what it says in the text. So when it says something, you can take whatever that is saying in the text and you know that that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what it means. That's what the text means. So writers use figurative language to paint a picture in the reader's mind. And we talked about that up here in our objective. When we as readers paint pictures in our mind, we are visualizing what is written in the text. So when I ask you to visualize what I'm reading, you will be engaging in a process which I'm going to explain in the next key point. How can we visualize? We can visualize by listening to the text read aloud to us. So while I'm reading, you'll be listening and closing your eyes. Now the purpose of closing your eyes is so that you can paint that picture in your head. Put your thumbs up if you have ever done that before. Okay. So what we see in our head is what we are visualizing. It helps us better understand the text when we are able to visualize. Now again, it's important that we are able to visualize because when we visualize something, we can see what's happening. We can see where it's taking place and potentially the time. If we know that it's daylight or we see daylight, we see a lot of light, we know that it's probably either in the morning or the afternoon. If it's dark, we might know that it's at night. But that's what we will be visualizing in our head. So again, that relates back to the setting. So that's how we'll be able to describe the setting because we're going to be visualizing. But again, we will be visualizing what the figurative language says in the text. So figurative language, if we go to this 4th point, figurative language can help us better understand and visualize setting. Setting describes the, and we already went over this again, so that's why I'm going to call on somebody to answer this. Yes, Kamira? The time and place, awesome. So the time and place. So again, I just did a check for understanding to make sure that you heard me the first time in the objective. And it shows that you were able to clearly understand what I was saying because you were able to repeat what we had done previously. There are 2 main types of figurative language that help readers visualize the setting. These types of figurative language use comparisons to help the reader see the setting in their head. So figurative language uses the comparisons of 2 things, or compares one thing to another thing, in order for you to better visualize it in your head. And again, when we look up at the top, we know that the 2 types of figurative language that we're going to be looking at today are similes and metaphors. So a simile compares 2 or more things using like or as. Now some of the information that we include on these key points might be things that you already know, but the point is you can use these guided notes as you're completing the work, so the information is right here. So if you do happen to forget, then you can refer back to these key points.
Got it.
A metaphor compares two or more things using is, are, was, and were. So as we are going through the objectives today, and as we're learning new things, I want to hear you say setting to describe the time and place. I want to hear you saying, I am visualizing this in my head, and explaining why. I want to hear you use, oh, that's a simile, and I know that it's a simile because, and then I know that this is a metaphor because. So before we do that, I want to practice making sure that we know how to pronounce the words so that we can use them in conversation. So repeat the words after me. Setting.
Setting.
Visualizing.
Visualizing.
Figurative language.
Figurative language.
Simile.
Simile.
And metaphor.
Metaphor.
So, if we look over here, this is what we will be completing today. What is an example of figurative language used in the text? So here is where you would find an example of figurative language used in the text. The second column says, is the example a simile or a metaphor? Then the third one says, what two things are being compared? And the fourth one says, what image does the figurative language paint in your mind? So again, this is where we're kind of painting that image in our mind. We're visualizing. And you can do that by closing your eyes and listening to the text. I'm also going to model for you.
Miss Candace,
Yes.
do you have brand new newborn?
No, Mr. Drummond does.
You say yes?
Mr. Drummond does.
Thank you.
And I'm going to model how to complete this. So we're going to actually turn to handout 1A, all summer in a day. So everyone get that out. When you have that out, put your thumbs up. I'm going to model how first we find an example of figurative language